one of the stars of GATLOPP, actor Jim Mahoney is here. Hey, Jim, thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Gore. This is Alan Ng. How's it going?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Okay, we're just talking about the movie. That I assume it's out now, available on demand.
Correct. Yes, correct. It is on iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, all those guys.
Fantastic. And also joining us is the director, Alberto Belli. Alberto, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Woo-hoo.
All right. Okay. Well, let's get right to it. I love board games, and I guess you could even say there's a board game movie genre, right? Like that now is a thing. I mean, you could do a marathon of board game movies, varying from comedies to action to horror. I assume obsession with board games inspired GATLOPP.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I definitely, the idea, for me specifically, it's like social games, like kind of like party games, games that make you like, it's obviously like alcohol is a social catalyst. And so that's a good start. And then you add a game into it. And I think you always get to see a lot of new flavors of people, your family, friends, people you haven't met before. And everybody kind of opens up in a way and they're challenged in a way that's really fun. And it always sends the evening in a fun direction, an unexpected and fun direction.
And I think board games also, like, especially over the last couple of years, have become very popular. You know, small group of people get together. I mean, I have my own board game collection, and a lot of them get like incredibly elaborate. In the coming up with the story, did you actually go through you had to kind of create the game to be able to do that? You know, to be able to do that in the movie. Alberto, was that part of the thinking? Like, hey, we got to like actually make the game now. It has to have at least some sort of logic, even if we break that logic later.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have to, take inspiration for real games and make it our own. And then I had a lot of fun, working with a team to design the game that looks real, right? Like that was very important for us to make sure that it felt that it has like some sort of past, but it would be cool to still play today. It was really fun to do that, yeah.
So which games inspired this movie?
It was a combination of I love things, Cranium, or a simple one being that game. Everyone has a different name for it, like Celebrity, where you all write names down in a thing and you put them in a bowl. There's like 3 different stages. There's a game called Quelf, which is a straight up party game. Also, I think visually we talked about Sorry being very much like a fun way of seeing it. And I was a big fan of Mousetrap as a kid. And I was like, that kind of feels like this a little bit,
Oh, Chris, I think your mic's off.
I said, sorry, Mousetrap was a favorite when I was a kid and used to love making that Rube Goldberg thing. It's pretty awesome. So what went into the thinking behind like the consequences aspect? Because it's not just a simple consequence. A lot of the consequences, the things that the characters in the film are being confronted with, actually come from, let's say, unresolved conflicts in each character's life. So there's a bit more to it than just a punishment, right?
Right, absolutely. I wanted I wanted 2 things to be happening with each punishment or sort of response, and it has to be character driven. It has to basically really attack what the characters are dealing with and what they're struggling with. But I also wanted it to have an element of like shock and awe, where it's like you really don't know. Like there's an arrow at one point in the movie, and I kind of wanted it to be you don't know why or where it comes from. It has to do with the reference earlier, but it's sort of out of nowhere. It's like you really don't know what will come at you is kind of what I wanted. I want that scorched earth feel when going through this story. But absolutely, I would have to then work backwards from the character issue. It's like, okay, the character has to deal with this. I have to work backwards from that. And then how do I structure the game's response to it versus the other way around?
We've got some comments here and questions. Let's go to those. Derek Douglas says, just watch the trailer. Looks real good. That's great. And then from Dempsey here is a question. I think this is for Alberto. What was the main differences working on GATLOPP versus the Orville?
It's probably for me.
Oh, sorry, Jim. I'm so sorry. I meant Jim. I meant Jim.
It's all right.
Okay. I assume there's maybe a budget difference, but what can you talk about, like Orville versus GATLOPP, and maybe indie versus working on a television series?
I mean, it's a little bit of night and day. I mean, it's like you're working on a universe when you're working on the Orville. I think they had 4 studio bays at Fox, and they built like you're working on the set of Star Trek. They built like actual spaceships that you're walking through, and it was insane. The costumes, the set design. I mean, there's thousands of people working on it. And Alberto and I had like we were in one house shooting with like 30 people for 2 weeks. And also, you shoot 2.5 pages a day working on the Orville, if that. We had a day where, what was it, Alberto? 15 pages, I think we had to do in a single day.
Yeah, 13. It was insane. Yeah.
So a little difference. There was a slight difference, but both are super fun.
Is there any difference, like with, because you hear actors, which thankfully have that luxury of doing like indie stuff versus things that have a higher budget. Is there a freedom sometimes with the indie stuff, with something like the Orville, which I love, by the way? I think it's the best Star Trek is the Orville. My opinion. We can argue that, but like, is there a difference, like where like you've got freedom with GATLOPP to go, well, let's just try this. We're gonna, what are your thoughts on like just sort of the creative environment?
I mean, for me personally, and then I'll give it to Alberto for his angle. Like for the Orville, because it's such a huge machine with so many moving parts, you can't necessarily pivot. I mean, Seth MacFarlane's also a crazy genius. So even in the moment when shooting, he'll be able to go, we can make these adjustments because he can see all the moving parts ahead of him. But I don't think many people can do that. I think he's one of the few that can do that, considering it's a massive, massive operation. Whereas for ours, it's small enough to where we do get issues. We have like either issues for constraints, budget, whatever, timing. We have to come up with a creative solve. And luckily Alberto was able to handle that like on a whim, because we had seconds to come up with huge solves.
Yeah. I'm curious about your relationship between you and Alberto. This is your script. How did you guys work together and make sure that your vision was coming across, and Alberto, your thoughts about how to shoot the film, shoot the script as well?
I think we make a great team because like we help each other out from the beginning of the development of the movie. So we knew exactly what we wanted. So I don't think it was never like we just wanted to make it better. So we will usually rehearse very quickly, right, because of time, like every scene, and then we will like go through our thoughts how to make it better, change a little bit of dialogue, do some improvisation. But like I think it was always trying to make every scene better. And like it was a lot of fun to having someone there who makes sure that everything is tracking, and because sometimes you kind of get lost of like, oh my god, we only have an hour to shoot this and we're screwed, right? It's just like it was very helpful to have someone also who is tracking the whole story, for sure.
Right, and there was a lot of trust on both sides. Like Alberto, I pitched the kind of the kernel of the idea to Alberto. He's like, I love it, and then he had all these smart ideas for the visual language of it. And we always talked about like 80s movies, 90s movies, Amblin, like these flavors that we wanted to hold on to, make that nostalgic feel. And Alberto's like, I think I have some ideas for that. And I was like, fantastic. I would go off and write pages, send him sloppy drafts, and then he would have like very smart, non-prescriptive notes. But he's like, this is great. Keep going in this direction. I wonder if we can hit this emotional feel here, or I'd love to hit a moment like this here. And I'd be like, I got it. And I would run off. And then same thing with him. He's like, what do you think about the look of the game? And he would show me mock-ups of the game. I was like, I'm losing my mind with how it was a shared language, but also like it was very much like he and I had a very similar feel for the overall story. But it was very much a trust. Like, you go deal with the visuals, you go deal with the direction, I'll go deal with the words on a piece of paper. And then it always seemed to come together well.
Quick question here from Flaccid Phoenix asks, what shot of the movie was the most difficult to shoot?
I'll give that to Alberto.
I mean, difficult. I mean, I thought kind of like, Jim mentioned like the arrow scene. I think probably that was the most difficult day because we were shooting 13 pages a day. The makeup was not working. So like just getting this moment, like you'll see in the movie, like bloods come out and we just couldn't get that shot right. And it was one of those things that is like, it should be so simple, but like when you're in an indie and there's no money and or preparation or like to test it before or whatever, you're just dealing with the problems at the same time. So for me, that was the most difficult one. I don't know for Jim, what was yours?
I think it was equally the most difficult and the most fun was the I'll just say the 80s sequence and the jazzercise sequence, because it was very hard to get prepared to like do that. But then when we started, it was basically one of those things. Well, we're shooting it. Like, I don't know if this will work, and it was working every time, and we were like cracking the crew up. It ended up being like a super fun, stressful but fun and very, very satisfying day.
I would imagine it's hard to shoot something bad on purpose.
More comments and questions here from our audience watching live. Marissa Perez says, okay, been hearing people write characters before they write a plot. So that's interesting. I do think that's also like, I don't know if that's specifically an indie thing, but I think that's what indie films do really well, is well-rounded characters. It's something that you don't have time for a lot of times in big Hollywood spectacle. So that's interesting. Is that a method that you use, Jim?
I mean, I think it's an unfortunate thing with those larger movies where I think sometimes they do focus on plot a little bit too much. It's kind of a chicken and egg scenario. I definitely feel that character is the most important. And obviously you find the character because then the journey matters. But also sometimes you think about like for this, genuinely, the idea was like, I have an idea. I have an idea of how to test people, and it's this game. I now need to come up with the people before I can come up with how I want them to go through it. And so there is an element of like, for this specifically, this was like, this is a game. I want them to go through a hellish game. Who are the people that would like basically be the worst prepared to deal with it? And then I start there and then kind of go on. But I mean, I feel like it's a dual sort of tracking. I don't think you can just create characters and then have a story, but it's hard. It's a chicken and egg scenario, but absolutely characters are the most important. And with small stuff like this, it has to be about characters because you don't have spectacle. You don't have the money or time or space to get the spectacle. So it's essential.
Gotcha. Another question here from Flaccid Phoenix. How much did the story change from the first time you saw like a cut of the movie to the finished film?
I'll get that to Alberto.
It didn't change much, to be honest. It's like what we shot, it was what's in the movie. We didn't cut any else scenes. We didn't change anything. It was literally what's on script. It ended up on the movie, yeah.
Very much, yeah.
Derek Douglas has a comment here, question. Would Ouija crossed with Jumanji be a good way to explain the movie?
I mean, like, there's a little flavor of a Ouija for sure, but I think it's more like, I kept saying it, if it's Jumanji was a drinking game, was just kind of how I put it.
Yeah, it's not a drinking game, but I guess you could turn it into that. Solomon Thornton asks, what other genres would you both want to do?
I love action adventure. That's I mean, I guess like you get a flavor here, and then yeah, I would love to keep doing that. I just did a Disney movie that is a big action adventure Christmas movie. So I would love to keep doing that. Yeah.
Oh, can you tell us what it is? Can you talk about it?
Not a lot of details, but it's called The Naughty Nine, and it's kind of like Ocean's 11 of naughty kids. So they have to break into Santa's village to be able to get the presents they didn't get for Christmas. So it's like building, and it was very, very exciting. But I would love to keep doing those kind of things. And a sequel of GATLOPP, why not? I'm going to throw it out there to the universe.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. I'm all
Jim,
for
what about
that.
yourself?
I'm all for that.
Jim, what about yourself? Other genres you'd want to do?
I actually just did a rom-com, crazy enough, an R-rated rom-com that I wrote and actually got to direct last year, which was really fun. I think comedy is always going to be a thread in anything I do, but I love the idea of action adventure, and I really love the idea of like I love the idea of playing in obviously horror comedy, and more horror comedy, but even like fantasy. Like I love the idea of getting into something that's like really grand in scope at some point, really testing my story chops on something big and epic.
Dempsey asks, what authors, screenwriters influence your style the most, or at least significantly?
I think Tony Gilroy is a big one. I think I love Lord and Miller. I think they're kind of mad geniuses. I love Zalian. I think he's also kind of a sick genius. And Diablo Cody. I like Diablo Cody's style a lot as well.
Yeah, no, her screenplays are just bizarre. Oh, I know, I love her stuff. Yeah. Another question here for both of you. What's your dream future project to work on from Flaccid Phoenix? Dream future project.
Oof.
I'm gonna say something in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
If I could do something that's like basically my version of Indiana Jones.
Sweet. And Dempsey has another question here. Do you have any personal favorite books, movies, TV shows, other than the Orville? But, you know, any...
Alberto, you go first.
I haven't watched the new season. It's on Hulu, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, then I have to get caught up. I am not caught up. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. But personal favorites.
Still Jurassic Park. I saw it when I was a kid on the big screen, the original one, obviously. And it had everything that I ever dreamed of, right? Like it's horror, but it's fun, it's adventure, and it's still my favorite movie to this day.
Wow.
That's good. I think right now I'm obsessed with The Boys. I think what they did with with this latest season is just, I love it so much. It's so crazy. It's so absurd. It's so fun. I love it. I think the movie that kind of changed everything for me was Beetlejuice growing up. And books, I love a lot. I was reading Red Rising is a big one, but I think my favorite book I ever read was The Stand.
Wow. Well, I want to, first of all, just GATLOPP is out today on video on demand. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. It's out today, video on demand. I'm going to assume all platforms, right? It's going to be wherever you prefer to purchase your platforms. I'm a Vudu guy. I get everything on Vudu, Movies Anywhere, iTunes, all that. Congratulations, gentlemen, on GATLOPP. It's a load of fun, a supernatural comedy about a board game with consequences. Let's just say consequences. Leave it at that. But I know you've got a busy interview schedule for today. I want to say thank you for joining us on the Film Threat Livecast. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Thank you so much.